Welcome to the RDL show. Ryan D. Leaf show here with Jonathan Rifkin, Sky Guasco, and Charlie Moss. Sorry to take you all away from March Madness Monday. First time they've done that, having second round games on a Monday morning. Oregon opened the morning with a dominant performance over Iowa. The Pac-12 has not lost a game, everybody. That is going to be one of my hot takes on what the Final Four looks like later. We'll see what the other fellas think. While you're watching these games, take a listen to what we have going on here on our YouTube channel. The underdog role, right? Everybody, in a sense, has some sort of underdog in them. You know, I think back to where I grew up in Montana, and I was placed on a pedestal there for how well I did, but no one from Montana ever went anywhere, right? There had never been a first-round draft pick in the state of Montana. I'm the first, right? There are more first-round draft picks in the Manning family than the whole state of Montana ever, okay? So there's no trailblazer. So I was an underdog all along. I was never supposed to make it to the NFL. I was probably never supposed to make it to a Division I school, play for a national championship in the Rose Bowl. None of that was something that was supposed to happen. So there's an underdog in all of us. And how the rest of my life played out and how I burnt it to the ground, and no one expected me ever to rise. Once again, there's an underdog piece to all of this. And I think that's finding chips on your shoulder. If you look at Tom Brady's story is an underdog story. He's the greatest quarterback to ever play. Okay? There's very few stories that somebody is at the very top their entire career. Now, we're watching Trevor Lawrence right now kind of lead that way. Elite 11, high school player of the year, highest ranked recruit going to Clemson, wins a national championship as a freshman, is going to be the first pick in the NFL draft. That's where the underdog story happens. He goes to Jacksonville. And when you go to Jacksonville, you are immediately an underdog, okay? So it always comes back and rounds out in form. I'm looking at my bracket here. As I'm assuming everybody else's, it's been completely busted. Oral Roberts, probably the main underdog as a 15 seed, gets to the Sweet 16 with big wins over Ohio State and then another one over Florida. Abilene Christian, that one for me over Texas. Not only to be a Division II school that has recently risen up, but to beat the University of Texas in Austin. That is huge in the state of Texas. This Texas team went on and won the Big 12 tournament. There have been a lot of those during this first few rounds, okay? We've seen Georgetown, who went on a run in the Big East tournament to win that, beat Creighton by like almost 30. So you just assume they're going to roll into the tournament. They get beat down by Colorado, absolutely outgunned the whole way through. I look at Oregon State. They figure out a way to win the Pac-12 championship. Okay. What team are they going to be? Are they going to be one that's on a roll, or are they going to, lay an egg too, like Georgetown? No, they're the team that's on a roll. They just entered the Sweet 16 with wins over Tennessee and Oklahoma State over the first weekend. You look at Georgia Tech, who for the first time in I don't know how forever won the ACC tournament, gets ousted by Loyola of Chicago in the first round. Now, that may have been a tough thing because Loyola of Chicago certainly was not a 8 seed. They were probably deserved of a 3 or 4 seed ultimately. And that underdog pattern keeps running wild with them as they beat Georgia Tech and Illinois, the first number 1 seed to fall in the tournament. Texas wins the Big 12, like we talked about. They get ousted by Abilene Christian. There have been a lot of underdog upsets in this year's tournament. And I think that harkens back to what Jonathan said last Friday in our show about why we love it so much, okay? I love winning in my bracket. Don't get me wrong. I fill it out. But the moment the ink hits the paper, I don't have anything invested in it. I'm not betting any money. I want chaos to happen because that's more fun. And we've seen it play out that way. There's a good chance that I have 8 of the 16 teams that make it to the Sweet 16, and I'm okay with 50%. I think that's what probably most people will be around this year with all the chaos that happened. But those that are upset that these types of things happen, I don't know if you're a true fan of the game or understand what fun having underdogs win feels like, okay? There's an underdog in all of us, in everything we do. This show is an underdog show. We are a grassroots. We started with 2 subscribers. Ironically enough, it jumped up like 200 people followed our show this weekend, guys. It must have been something that Sky said on his Twitter account.
It's the beard.
Yeah.
The beard is hypnotizing people. It's hypnotizing people.
It's a team effort, guys. I'm just trying to pull my weight. That's all.
So let's bring in the fellas here. And what do you guys think We'll go around the globe here a little bit. What do you think the biggest upset was? What do you think has been the best story, and who has had the most dominant performance? Let's start with Jonathan there and talk about that a little bit.
I mean, look, first of all, you talk about Abilene Christian beating Texas in an in-state battle. Loyola Chicago beat Illinois in an in-state battle too. So we're talking about 2 teams that have dominated their state getting beaten by the quote Cinderella team. That's pretty impressive. I love Oral Roberts. I love Loyola Chicago. Both those stories are great. I think for me, the biggest surprise is Ohio University, though. We got to tip our caps. Beating Virginia, a team that consistently loses to double digit seeds in the NCAA tournament. The Syracuse story.
They also win national championship too. So
that too. No, but for Ohio University, I mean, their leading scorer's mother died this past year, and he attributed this game and his 30-point performance, 26-point performance, and the victory to come from behind, down by 8 in the second half to beat Virginia. I mean, he attributed it all to her, and I think that makes it just a little bit more special, right? All these players playing with the chip on their shoulder for the smaller programs. Loyola Chicago is the best X's and O's team in the tournament. But I think Ohio University, I don't think everybody said, okay, North Texas could win their first round matchup, and they did. UCLA, we're Pac-12. Ryan and I are big Pac-12 guys, so we have all the Pac-12, not all of them, but like Oregon State, I love the story, but they're not my favorite. Ohio University to me is the Cinderella so far of the tournament.
Fair enough. I like the Oregon State story. Shouts out to Pac-12. I'm an Oregon guy, but I like to keep it in state if we can. And them having two big wins to start off the tournament, I thought was fun, entertaining, a new team for people to root for and get after a little bit. So getting over Tennessee, a 5 seed, as a 12, and then getting over Oklahoma State as a 4 seed, now going up against Loyola Chicago in the Sweet 16. So it's going to be interesting, but Oregon State's playing well.
I'm going to go with Oral Roberts. I hadn't even heard about Oral Roberts until the tournament, and to beat Ohio State and then Florida, 2 programs that have had historically successful turns in the tournament, just to go out there and compete with them, show them that they mean business is something, because all these players on Oral Roberts are looked after in high school. They're not the ones getting all the scholarship offers from big schools. That's why they're at Oral Roberts. But to see the NCAA's leading scorer, Sam Asmus, I believe, the B.
Yeah, the B is silent.
The B is silent, but to see Sam Asmus and their other players just dropping 30 points in back-to-back games and competing at the highest level has been something that's awesome to see. And they're just the second 15 seed to make the Sweet 16.
Can we, Ryan, really quickly here? We have an update on our show's bracket challenge. Can we throw that up really quick? And
sure.
So Rob is in first.
Well done, Rob.
Good job, Rob. Now I highlighted, so none of us are in the top 5. The RDL show itself is tied for 5th. But Rob is leading the way right now, and none of us are in the top 10. I don't know what that says about us as NCAA analysts.
So this is an interesting format though, because if you look at the scoring, there's 3 tied for 2nd, 4 tied for 5th. So you could say it's like, that's the top 3.
I'm just excited that we got somebody on here named Big Dick Mick Cronin. I like it. Do you think that's Coach Cronin? You think Coach Cronin came a part of it and he's just showing off? He's showcasing, shooting a shot.
I would actually be incredibly shocked if it was not Coach Cronin. I just want to say that.
I actually know who this bracket is, and it's somebody who used to work with Coach Cronin, so he may have had a say.
He may have had a say in it.
Look at all those Gonzagas. All those Gonzagas. It's a lot.
Well, that doesn't bode well for me since I have Gonzaga winning it and for
It's
a
a lot of
comeback
heat.
here.
Hey, they're up 5 right now. They're up 5.
All right, so I'm going to go. My biggest upset was Abilene Christian over Texas because of the disparity. I coached in Texas. I coached at the Division II level. I played against Abilene Christian. I understand the disparity in resources and size and all of that up against the behemoth of the Texas Longhorns. And to beat them in that fashion where they did not play well. They didn't shoot well. Defensively, they slowed the game down. A 69% free throw shooter hits 2 big ones at the end to get it done. That, for me, has been the biggest upset. The best story continues for me to be Loyola Chicago. It just does. You have an old, 90-year-old nun who is their biggest fan, vaccinated, ready to go, she says. And, they just continue. This is a team 3 years ago that was in the Sweet 16 again, or made the run in 2018. So they for me have continued to be the story. And the most dominant performance so far may have changed today with the way that Oregon decimated Iowa. If it weren't for how many points they allowed in the first half, I would probably say that. Colorado's just annihilation of Georgetown in the first round is the most dominating performance by any team so far for me. And I look forward to seeing how they match up against Florida State this afternoon. The Big Ten, which to everybody's mindset was the behemoth in this year's bracket. I mean, 9 teams, right?
Yep.
You have 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, everybody. And at the end of the day, there may just be 2 teams left. Michigan's got to win; they got to play. Maryland's got to play Alabama. There also can be the possibility that 0 Big Ten teams are even around after the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. So this year, the optics of what we saw, right? Underdogs. The Pac-12 gets no credit a ton. They have yet to lose a game, and they had to play a play-in game. So UCLA's already won 2 games. They're playing a third already today. They are undefeated, as the Big Ten is as defeated as possible. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that they only played conference games this year, really. There's not a huge sample size outside the conference. So we don't know what we don't know. And right now it looks more and more like the Pac-12 was maybe the most competitive. And what's ironic about the whole deal, the team that won the regular season title, Oregon, was never even in the top 25. And when it got to the tournament, the 2 teams that were in the top 25 got ousted, and they were in the high 20s. They were 23, 24 as they were ranked. So it's been fun to watch. Somebody who covers the Pac-12 a ton. I just got off my Pac-12 radio show this morning with SiriusXM, and it was a fun show to do. We had the live check-ins with the Oregon game, a 9 a.m. tip-off on a Monday. March Madness Monday. That's what today was. And the underdogs continue to prevail. But when it's all said and done, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who are starting to pull away from Oklahoma a little bit right now, I still believe is the best team. Would you consider the Gonzaga Bulldogs an underdog? They are 90 miles from my alma mater, where they cannot consistently field a solid basketball team. Yet 90 miles away in little Spokane, Washington, at a little private school near Gonzaga Prep High School, is a university that has the number 1 team in the nation right now, the number 1 team overall, who played in a national championship against North Carolina a few years back, coming up a little short. Is it this year? Is it this time? Are they an underdog, or are they supposed to get it done?
I think that the grassroots organization of which Mark Few took over and built makes them an underdog, right? Like, he started, like you said, with a program in Spokane that was seldom known outside of the Pacific Northwest for any sport. Now they have they're dominant in baseball, they're dominant in women's basketball, they're dominant in men's basketball. They have a pretty good acro team too, but I think that they're the underdog for being a mid-major program from the West Coast Conference. But every single year they build out their non-conference schedule and they demolish top 25 teams, and they did it this year also. So I don't think that I don't think that they're perceived to be you're not an underdog if every single person or 90% of the people are taking you to win the championship, right? So I think perceptively, no, Gonzaga is not an underdog. From a program standpoint, yeah, just because of where they are and what they've had to go through the last decade to get to where they are, it's an amazing story about the underdog rising up. But to be the favorite to win it all, I don't think they're an underdog, just a great mid-major story.
I agree. Coming in undefeated, it's hard to have anybody an underdog no matter who you are. And being the favorite in the tournament, the number one overall seed is hard to play with a chip on your shoulder. But to your point, Ryan, being in a place up in the Northwest, I'm up here too, and the recruiting is far different. If you're not at a large school like Oregon, being able to pull recruits from all over the country. So I do think it's a little bit of both. And I agree with Jonathan's take. I did see a trivia question that was floating around, and the question was, which of these teams has at least 20 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances? And the team options were Gonzaga, UCLA, Oklahoma, and Michigan. And I personally would have picked either of the other three other than Gonzaga to be the right answer, but Gonzaga is the only team out of
that one was easy.
That's an easy.
It wouldn't have been for me for 2 straight decades for some reason. I just think powerhouse schools, bigger overall brands.
For me, it's about how about this one? Roy Williams has played in 30 NCAA first round games, and he had never lost one until last week.
That's insane.
When Wisconsin took them down by a bunch. So there's been a lot of firsts. This year, it shouldn't surprise us that these underdogs or teams that we weren't expecting be successful, because we saw it play out in the conference tournaments. We did. Oregon State in the Pac-12, Texas in the Big 12, Georgetown in the Big East, right? Georgia Tech in the ACC. It's a year where that hasn't happened before. Who won it in the SEC this year? Alabama?
Alabama barely beat LSU. Yeah.
Alabama.
So, these are teams that haven't normally been a part of it. So, I think this, eclectic Final Four, Sweet 16, Elite Eight is going to be fun. The Pac-12 has a chance to place 3 conference teams in the Final Four. And we could have a rematch of the Pac-12 championship in the national championship between Oregon State and Colorado. A lot has to happen then. Oregon State probably has the best path with teams like Syracuse, Loyola Chicago, and Houston in their path in comparison to what UCLA, Colorado, USC, and Oregon have to do. USC and Oregon would have to play each other to get to the Elite Eight. Colorado, UCLA would have to play each other to get to the Final Four. Oregon State probably has the cleanest path to the Final Four. We'll see how that plays out, but it's fun. I have not watched hardly any college basketball all season except for the Pac-12 stuff I have to do to cover. But I've been locked in over the last 3 days and today as well, because it's fun to watch how this all plays out. The underdog role is strong in 2021.
Ryan, would you consider? I want to bring up one more team. Would you consider Syracuse in the same conversations with Gonzaga? Not the overall number one seed or any of that, but traditionally consistent team, won championships. Bam's been up and down the bracket forever, but they come in as an 11 seed. But they put it to San Diego State, who we talked about last week as one of our kind of sleepers throughout the bracket, and then edge out West Virginia, and now they're in the Sweet 16 as well. How do you feel about Syracuse?
They're blue blood in my eyes. They're blue blood in my eyes. Boeheim gets it done year in, year out. And I tell you what, there's a problem playing that 2-3 zone when you get into tournament type play. When you haven't played against it all year long, when you step into it, it's a different type of thing. Washington had a bunch of success with that when Hopkins got there the last few years. He was coach of the year for the first 2 years in the Pac-12. He came in and inherited a team, and with Matisse Thybulle, they were able to extend and do crazy things defensively. It's very hard to be not prepared for a Syracuse 2-3 defense in the way they go about it and do it on a couple days. Like the West Virginia win is not as impressive as the first one for them, where they beat
San Diego State.
Where they beat San Diego State because San Diego State had a week to prepare for the 2-3 zone. Mm-hmm. So that for me isn't. I don't ever take them as an underdog. Really, I still look at Gonzaga as an underdog.
I would actually kind of flip Syracuse and Gonzaga, and as Gonzaga has gotten like as their program has gotten built up more, Syracuse has kind of like declined. Obviously, they're still a blue blood. I'm not denying that, but just the exposure and recruiting has gone down. And while that's happening, Gonzaga's is going up. Oh my
Ooh, it's
god!
early. It's
Already.
Oh my god!
Already.
It's early.
Oh,
You cannot make an argument, Charlie, and call a team, well, they're still a blue blood, and then call them an underdog. Okay, that's just so bat-worthy that it was not even a question. Like, my feet got up on my own and walked me over to the back. Okay,
Can I give some points to back it up real quickly?
I don't know if that's going to help you.
So the past 3 times Boeheim and Syracuse have been ranked an 11 seed. They've made it to the Sweet 16 every time. 2016, 2018, now 2021. They are comfortable.
It shouldn't surprise you.
No, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, it does surprise me. I will say that. But I'm just saying, yes, they are blue blood. Yes, they are a historic program. Yes, they've had extreme amount of success. But these past 5-6 years, their exposure, their recruiting, everything has gone down while Gonzaga's is going up.
Syracuse basketball is like USC football in my mind. The way that it
I kind of like that.
They can never be an underdog.
They can never be an underdog, but they're always going to be protected by the institution, even if they're not that good. Speaking of, by the way, I think that this year's tournament sort of proves the flawed college football playoff idea, right? Because it's the four same teams every single year in the college football playoff. And if they expanded it and even made it a tenth of what we see in the March Madness tournament, it would probably be that much more exciting.
Well, it has to happen. It has to happen, because if it doesn't, you're going to lose. You're going to lose fans. It's going to happen. This year did it. It really did. It made you look at that committee and made you really untrustworthy of them. Because this was a year that they needed to expand it. I don't care if it's still going to be Alabama and Ohio State in the national championship, like most likely it will be. Because guess what? When this is all said and done, this tournament probably is going to be Gonzaga and Baylor. Most likely, Most likely that's what the national championship is going to be, which is 2 number 1 seeds. Same thing can happen in football, but guess what? You're going to have a few upsets. You're going to have some great games. You know what? We would have got probably BYU, Coastal Carolina in the playoff rather than the regular season, and that was the best game of the year. So they need to expand, and if they don't, they're doing college football a disservice, and they're going to lose fans. Because guess what? When that kicks off and ESPN promotes it on Tuesday night, who's in? As soon as your team is no longer a threat to be in, which is pretty deafening in weeks 1 and 2 of that, you don't need to. You're not paying as much attention. Why do you think players are opting out of bowl games as much as they are? Because they are meaningless.
But how does the NCAA, Ryan, look at the ratings, look at the numbers that they're getting on March Madness, and just the day by day, right? How these Cinderella teams are keeping the ratings alive because everybody wants to see what happens in their next game. How do they not look at this? And I know there's a committee. I know that there's a college football playoff committee. But how does the NCAA not lobby to that committee to expand the playoff after looking at these numbers in March Madness and saying we could do even better if we had an 8 or 10 team college football playoff?
They're not invested. They're not invested monetarily like they are in the basketball side of things. The NCAA has nothing to do with the college football playoff. I mean, they could lobby it all they want, but how is it benefiting them?
They get TV revenue splits, so it does benefit them for it to expand.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that. The NCAA doesn't have really any pull when it comes to football anyway. They like to sit back and collect, like you talked about, collect their checks. So they don't really care how it goes. But you're exactly right, though. I mean, for me, it's just a matter of everything that plays out in college football. People lost interest this year. I was disgusted with it. You and I on our podcast, we had many situations where I was like, "What are you doing? You're a joke." And are you kidding me? How great would it be to see an upset like an Oral Roberts over Ohio State? Because it would happen. Ohio State may not show up for a game against
Boise State.
Yeah, we saw Boise State win against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl before. Things like that could happen. But I want to see it. I was once a 16-team guy, then an 8, and I'm probably a 16-team guy right now. I am. I'm probably a 16-team guy right now when it comes to the playoff. And that because it just keeps people more invested longer in the season, and that's what we need. We need longer investment in the college football season, because probably after week 2 of who's in, on ESPN on a Tuesday night, we've kind of moved on. And let's move on from here to Sunfair, boys. Sunfair.com, okay? You gained a few pounds during the pandemic, like a lot of us did. I went the opposite direction, right? I got on a meal plan with a nutritionist, with Sunfair, and it's changed everything for me. Now, none of my clothes fit anymore, which is a good thing. And I am more fit. I'm more energized. Can chase my kiddo around a lot more. It's been literally all about the food. Played golf, do some hikes, but have not worked out once since July 3rd during the pandemic. And here we're at. I can't believe that's me at the top of those pictures, but it is. And it's been about all the food. It's about the commitment of it, okay? I'm a Sunfair brand ambassador, and you can do the same. Just go to sunfair.com, fill out your information, select Carl Farrow as your sales representative, and also pick the Ryan D. Leaf Show as how you heard about it. You'll get 10% off your first delivery. They deliver the food to you every morning in a green to-go bag. It's perfect. You pick it up. You're surprised every morning on what your meals will be for the day, and then you go about your business. Just stick to it. That's all. Your representative at Sunfair will help you. If you are in the Los Angeles and Phoenix's areas, is where they deliver. Join up now. We'll share bathroom shirtless selfies. All right. All right, fellas. Let's move on to the NFL side of things. Big news over the last day. What was it? The NFL draft. Whether or not it was going to be in Cleveland or not, live. And it is. They're looking at limited ways to bring in fans. Now, I've been one of the probably isolated people who have been very critical of both college football and NFL football for playing during the pandemic. Now, I understand the NFL side. I think it's a private business. They can throw a ton of money at it. College, different, right? Players are not being compensated. You're putting with the long-term effects of it. You don't know. You always take a risk playing football. I get it, but this is a different one. So I was vehemently against college football being played last year. They got through the season. They crowned a national champion, and here we are. Same thing with the NFL. Well, here we are coming up in April, where spring break has shown spikes in COVID-related illnesses all over the country. It's still something that we're in despite all the vaccinations that have taken place. I haven't been vaccinated yet, so I continue to adhere to everything I need to, because guess what? My fear in all this is that I infect somebody else, because I don't believe that. I think I would be more asymptomatic, or that it wouldn't affect me that much, but I'd pass it along to somebody that had some long-lasting health deficiencies and could die from it. That's been my biggest fear in all this. So the NFL, again, steps up and talks to us about the money-making side of this. The draft being held at a live venue is about the money. It has blown up over the last decade in terms. What they did in Nashville a few years ago had to have generated so much money. It's free to the public, but the advertising, everything that goes with it is different. I'd like to see what the ratings were for the draft last year when they did it virtually. Also, I expect a lot of the players to not go to Cleveland, but to stay at home with their families. Now, I don't want it as an excuse for a bunch of family members to gather around like Christmas and holidays where they pass the virus around either. This may be an argument from the side of the NFL at saying, hey, if they come to Cleveland, it's an isolated thing. There's, 3 or 4 family members. Whereas if they did it back home, the whole house could be full and that could be a problem. So that may be an argument they're trying to have here. What is your guys' thoughts on the NFL continuing to have their live draft in Cleveland here at the maybe tail end of this worldwide pandemic?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they actually handle things. I actually personally enjoyed the virtual version of it last year. It was kind of funky because it's the first time they had done it. But, Ryan, you alluded before you jumped on the broadcast that, a lot of these players, this is literally a life-changing event, right? And for their families as well. And especially in the time that we've been in for the last year plus, I think a lot of people are really maybe going to miss or enjoy or opt out. Is it possible to opt out of the draft? Especially these higher picks who know they're going to go maybe day one.
What do you mean by
choose
that?
to stay at home.
No, you always can. You can always can. Do you remember Myles Garrett? He was the number 1 overall pick. He chose to stay home. I wish I would have stayed home with my family and celebrated it with my hometown. That's like, especially if you're from somewhere small, that's something different I wish I would have done. I wish I would have included my hometown of Great Falls, Montana, because we already had a frictioned and fractured relationship because of the fact that I left the state to go play somewhere else, and that I felt that they treated me poorly and they felt like I treated them poorly. I mean, when the Heisman Trophy poll came out in my home state, I finished 3rd. How, that's not good.
Support.
Right. So if I could have brought them into the fold, because all along, all they wanted was, they finally got an NFL player, an NFL quarterback. Unfortunately, they got me. And so instead of taking the high road and, coming back and saying, let's all do this together, I, pretty much, stood up and said, I told you fuckers, this is what I was going to do, and threw it in their face. So this is an opportunity for a lot of individuals. The young linebacker from Tulsa, I think, would be awesome maybe to do it back locally in that community, something like that. This is an opportunity, I think, for guys that are going to be drafted high, when the draft is all about you, is to make it about your community and make it about your family and stuff like that. So I think that's more the direction this is going to go. And the NFL is going to be surprised when a lot of those top guys, I think, don't show up. And it might be a good litmus test to see those that do, who are still making it all about them. Because when you're doing it there, it's all about you. It's not about your teammates. It's not about your family, anything like that. It really is about you on that stage, hugging a man that you'll probably never see again, except unless you're in trouble with the NFL. I always find this, the juxtaposition of you hugging a guy that only stands up for the owners and gives you a hug. That's the first person that hugs you when you get announced you're going to go to the NFL. You're not hugging your high school coach or your college coach or your mom and dad or something like that. And that's what you see when you see those at-home ones. So I think we'll see a little bit more of that. And it might be a good way to test the narcissistic personality of some of these high draft picks.
I agree. And the NFL proved, even though it was a little bit shaky here and there last year, they proved that they can do it virtually. And I agree with you, Ryan. I do think a number of players will opt out of going to the physical draft in Cleveland, staying home. And I agree with you that it would be nice to see some of the smaller school guys, specifically like higher picks, like a Trey Lance or so, staying home and celebrating with their community, their family. I just think it's such a special day. And we saw a lot of special moments last year because they were home that you don't see when it's the full in-person draft. They have the immediate family and stuff like that, but not necessarily what we saw last year. So I'm actually looking forward to a little bit of that.
And it's in the community piece of it. Like when I go talk to these young rookies going into the NFL, I always have to give them advice from my point of view, my experience. And my experience was, when you're getting drafted, from the moment you declare for the draft to when you are drafted, everything's about you. Everything. Like, it's all about your agent. It's all about the publicity of everything, talking you up, making you the most desirable pick for an NFL team. And then once you get drafted, you have to resort back to team mode because you become part of the team. This is the only time in your career where you weren't part of a team. Is this 6-month window. And some can bounce back into that team concept and some don't. It becomes all about them. So what I try to tell them is say, during this span, try to give back. Try to make something not about you. Remove yourself from the conversation and give back in some way of service. And they do things within their community. Or, my best advice is to go back home, because, you don't realize how many people supported you that you didn't see when you were growing up, when you were just a kid. And when you're from a small town, that impact can be felt, for generations, really. When dads bring their, 5-year-old kid to the draft day of, the local kid who made good. I mean, that's not just watching on TV is one thing. Like, watching the moon landing is amazing, but imagine if you were on the moon when it's going on. All right. You're going to think about it much differently. And we know how many people watched that play out. Let's move along to the rest of March Madness. All right. I want to go through who we know is in the Sweet 16 so far, all right? And then we're going to kind of take you viewers and maybe help you with your picks if you're doing some live betting and taking you through the process, all right? So teams that are already on to the Sweet 16. The Houston Cougars, the 2 seed, right? They had a pretty easy time with Cleveland State and then had a tough time with Rutgers. But they were able to get it done, and they advanced to the Sweet 16. Now, we talked about Syracuse already. They'll take on Houston after they were able to beat West Virginia, who was a 3 seed, who had a really good year. Bob Huggins, once again, kind of comes up short in the NCAA tournament. Who do you guys got? Houston, Syracuse advancing to the Elite Eight.
Houston.
I like Syracuse. I like Syracuse.
I mean, Rutgers almost pulled it out last night. They did. Houston had to go on a frivolous second half comeback. They were down by like 12 but Houston's net defense is top 5 in the nation. So if they can find a way to keep Buddy Boeheim from hitting 7 threes in the game, I think that they'll win this game. So I'm going to go Houston under the condition that they live up to their defensive.
Stop giving conditions. Just pick a team.
All right.
Your analysis.
I'm going to go Houston, but I'm taking the Syracuse.
We might have to. I think the bat might have to come out with you with your net numbers and shit. All right. I got Houston. Okay, there we go. All right. Oregon State versus Loyola of Chicago. Oregon State won the Pac-12 conference, got a 12 seed, and has just decimated both Tennessee and Oklahoma State. How do they fare against a very overseeded or underseeded Loyola Chicago team this weekend?
I'm going Loyola and Sister Jean. I think they're just a very, very tough team, and like you said, they were overseeded. They should have been at least like a 5 or 6 seed. Porter Moser has been in this position before. He made the Final Four 3 years ago, so he knows what it takes. He has 2 players on their team now, and Lucas Williamson and Cameron Krutwig. They were part of that team, so I like the way they're playing.
I disagree. I'm wearing an Oregon shirt, but I think Oregon State's going to win. Wayne Tinkle turned Hinkle Fieldhouse last night into Tinkle Fieldhouse. Like that.
Oh, that seems original.
Hey, I said it.
Too bad for Johnson.
I said it. Hold on. I said it before Roxy Bernstein tweeted it last night.
All right. Good deal. Good deal.
I just want to point that out. But no, I think Oregon State has all the momentum in the world right now. They're playing with continuity that I've never seen before in this season with that Oregon State team. And I don't know. I think Loyola Chicago has been fun. I think Oregon State has more talent, and they're going to walk away with a victory.
Sky.
I'm really perplexed. I'm trying to do some quick math. Not enough to get a bat, but I'm looking at both these teams, and Loyola and Oregon State have both had dominant victories over teams seated higher than them. Especially, Loyola beating Illinois by 13, I think, takes the cake for me. I'm going to stick with Sister Jean, and I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago over the in-state Oregon State Beavers.
I'm going to go with the Oregon State Beavers. They are, they're on a hot roll as you can. They walked into the Pac-12 championships tournament in Las Vegas, and just after the first half against UCLA, they've been as dominant as any team. Their length, they've got guys that averaged less than 1 point down the paint now, making plays. Their bench was great last night. They overcame an incredible run by a true NBA player in Cunningham with Oklahoma State to just stave off victory. I just think it keeps going. I think it really does. And they take down the darlings of the NCAA tournament, Loyola Chicago. All right, let's pop up to Oral Roberts versus Arkansas. Oral Roberts with the 2 upsets. Arkansas chalk throughout, beats Colgate, beats Texas Tech barely, where Arkansas seemingly just kind of going about their business, kind of under the radar. Oral Roberts has been the big. I wouldn't be surprised if Oral Roberts falls a little flat and Arkansas just continues to do what they're going to keep doing. I'm going to go with Arkansas to advance to the Elite Eight.
Same.
Yeah, I am too. I just think Arkansas is. Hard to say this now, but they're a big, strong, athletic team. I know that Ohio State and Florida are similar, but I just think Arkansas has been playing great the past couple weeks and will be too much for Oral Roberts to handle.
I want do it, Jonathan. Do
I
it,
want
Jonathan.
Oral Roberts, but my heart knows that Arkansas is going to win this game. They have some tough losses. They have some tough regular season losses. They lost to LSU all 3 times they played them. They lost to Alabama in the regular season. They lost to Missouri. They lost to Oklahoma State. So it's not like, but all these teams were highly ranked teams in the tournament. So yeah, Texas Tech missed the game tying layup and the game tying
3 times. 3 times.
Yeah.
There were
That was
opportunities.
brutal.
to
They missed
You
a
know.
ton
and they
at
brought
the
it
end.
back. They were down by like 10 with 6 or 7 minutes left.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Arkansas has the talent. I love Eric Musselman. I think he's one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. What a steal from Nevada they got when he moved over there. So I think Arkansas, and I think they're going to beat the spread on this one.
All right, the last Sweet 16 matchup we have set in stone right now is Villanova versus Baylor. Villanova, tournament time seems to show up. They were a 5 seed. They beat Winthrop and then defeated a very good Purdue team, a team that or a North Texas team. Sorry, just dominated a North Texas team. So I'm excited for this game. I think Baylor continues to do what they've been doing. I think they're in the national championship when it's all said and done. They've been one of the 2 best teams in the country this year with some late season losses that were kind of inexplicable. They were undefeated for most of the year. I think they're focused in, and I think Baylor beats this Villanova team and extends their trek in this tournament.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think Baylor might smack them. Villanova played Winthrop and North Texas in the first 2 rounds, and they don't have Colin Gillespie, so they're fortunate enough to get past those 2 teams. But you're going to need your All-American point guard against a team like Baylor. So without Colin Gillespie, I don't think they have a chance.
I agree. I've got Baylor winning the whole thing, so I'm gonna stick with them.
All righty, there you go. The other side of the bracket, Oregon is the only team to have advanced to the Sweet 16 after their drubbing of Iowa and Luka Garza and that team knocking out another Big Ten school. Gonzaga up at halftime right now. In the other side of this, we have the rest of the bracket games to go. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday. But now let's go to a little celebration drink, people. How about a little Athletic Brewing? You can go to athleticbrewing.com. It's a non-alcoholic brewery. It is unbelievable. The taste without any of the consequences, right? Now, I am not somebody who preaches abstinence by no means, but for me, I'm allergic to it, right? I break out in handcuffs, people. So I need to feel part of the group. I need to have a beer in my hand and not have the alcohol content. This is where I go. Athletic Brewing, bunch of different versions. You go there to athleticbrewing.com and you sign up for delivery. You'll get 10% off your first order of 6-packs. So go to athleticbrewing.com, crack one open with us, and in celebration of picking up 200 subscribers over the weekend. Thank you very much. We're going to do a Q&A, so keep asking questions in our scroll here, everybody, and we're going to answer those at the end of the show, or at least answer some when we get into the show. We're going to move on to the NBA right now. First off, some sad news, and it just seemingly, I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're home more, but there's just seemed to be a lot of people we know pass away. Elgin Baylor, Hall of Famer, legend Laker, former Clippers exec, passed away today at 86 years old. So in just 86 is a long run. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't a life cut short or anything, but we really have seemingly seen so many people we know pass away during this pandemic, and not from COVID, but from natural causes or other things. So we wish our best to the Baylor family, Laker Nation, Clipper Nation here in LA. He's been such a big part of NBA basketball for so long. So here's a little highlight reel of the man in his heyday.
Ryan, I'd like to give a further shout out while we're watching the rest of this clip here. Baylor, 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA selection, 14 season with the Lakers. He was the 58-59 Rookie of the Year, and he was the All-Star Game MVP that year as well. Averaged a double-double for his entire career, 27-plus points a game, 13.5 rebounds per game, dominant.
That is amazing. Average a double-double. Yeah, that's That's something that's pretty impressive. So non sequitur, but injuries in the NBA is what has cropped up, and we saw it play out quite a bit over the last few nights. LeBron James goes down with a high ankle sprain last night. Now they are down their best two players. LaMelo goes down with a broken wrist. With the year he was having, it's disappointing because he's not able to finish and put a exclamation point on it for Charlotte. They weren't going to be in the conversation for championship, but
possibly the rookie of the year.
He still probably could pull that off the way he was playing. There's a good chance that he could still pull that off. Steph gets hurt, won't be traveling, and of course AD. So the Lakers are out their best two players. You and I guys were talking about a pre-show. Is this Laker team capable of winning any games without AD and LeBron? Because do they have the playoffs in set? I mean, or is this a team that could sneak in as the 8th seed or something because their best two players aren't playing?
Drop that far. They won't drop that far. If worst comes to worst, the Lakers will be a 3 seed. Because right now they
what if these guys don't play the rest of the year?
They're not. LeBron James with a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprains, Ryan, are typically 10 to 15 days and then reevaluation.
Tell me about an ankle sprain. I've never had one.
Ankle sprains, Ryan, are typically 10 to 15 days and then an evaluation. I wish I had a bat to get out.
It's in between the heel and the shin.
Yeah,
it's like right in that.
It's that thing that bulges out that sometimes you don't feel when it falls asleep. Okay,
I get it.
With all that said, the Lakers are going to be a playoff team. All they have to do is get to the postseason and pray that Anthony Davis, who I'm more concerned about than LeBron James, because Achilles tendonitis is a serious problem that is reoccurring that he's had to deal with the entire season. I'm more worried about him than I am LeBron James. If both of them are healthy, they're going to win the West and at least make the finals. If Anthony Davis is out, they're losing to the Nuggets, the Jazz, or the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. And if both those guys are out, I don't know if they even make it through the first round, because truthfully, look at the rest of that team and tell me who can step up in late game situations in a 7-game series against any of the top 8 teams in the West to win. I just don't see it. Unless Kuzma starts averaging.
Kyle Kuzma becomes a household name, like LeBron James, right? They'll call him the Prince when it's all said and done.
Kyle Kuzma can score 30 points a game, it's not going to happen.
Right.
No, I see Jared Dudley coming off scoring 30 a game. Just saying.
Jared Dudley's injured too, though. He fractured something.
Nah, without LeBron and AD, they don't stand a chance in the playoffs.
Now, I broached this with you guys a little bit. Steph Curry now down with an injury. Klay Thompson blows his Achilles before the season. We see him training, see him coming back. Is the Golden State Warrior window of championships over? I mean, are these guys going to be good players when they come back, but not elite enough to get them to championships anymore? Because
it's not over.
I don't think it's over. It's closing. It's closing, and it's at risk minimum. Draymond's been banged up as well.
I don't think it's closing even, Sky. I think it's circumstantial, right? They have one of the best. They might have the best young center in the NBA in James Wiseman. Developing center. They have when Klay Thompson comes back. Typically, offensively, guys coming back from the injury that he has, that tear. Offensively, they're not the same. Defensively, Klay Thompson is probably going to still be a top 5 player. And then Steph is Steph. Like they're not a championship contending team this year. So why push him? Maybe he's in the conversation for MVP, but probably not, because they're probably going to be a lower seed if they make the postseason. So next year, they come back fully healthy. They get another, glue guy, and that team is going to be a championship contender once again.
Yeah, and you still
all right. So Jonathan's very, very happy about this. Okay, good.
I'm not happy about anybody getting injured.
No, you believe very highly that this Golden State Warriors team is still a championship caliber kind of team. So
Charlie,
I was going to say, it seems like the vibes in San Diego are going well for Jonathan right now.
Only good vibes.
All right,
only good vibes. Oregon's winning. Oral Roberts is winning. His shirts seem to be magical in form. I think the window is almost shut with the Golden State Warriors. I think Draymond will not be with this team further down the line when they get Klay and Steph back. Wiseman is a great pick. They got a great opportunity with being down the last year to get him. Centers are, what kind of center is he going to be? Is he going to be a Joel Embiid type of center, or the more traditional one, which is becoming more obsolete in the NBA? We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. All right. So, Sky, I want you to dive into some of our questions from today. We've been remiss in getting to a lot of your questions, and I tell you what, we are grassroots. Our fan base, our viewers that watch this show religiously, who put comments in 15 minutes before the show even starts, that's what makes us special. I'm not going to have the same kind of followership as a true sports fan. You have to be you have to know my story. You have to be willing to listen and hear and look at others with caring eyes. And I think this show is like that. Let's start with, and some of these names are hilarious too, by the way. Stanky 3000. After Lawrence, in what order do you see the quarterbacks going in? I would go, if I were drafting, this is how I would do it. I would go Trevor Lawrence. I would go Justin Fields. I would go Mac Jones. I would go Davis Mills. I would go Zach Wilson. And I would go Trey Lance. That's the way I would do it right now. The way I think it's going to go and the way the teams are going to draft, it's going to go Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, probably, maybe Mac Jones. Davis Mills is moving up the list, though. He's a guy I've been talking about a lot. Mm-hmm. He's my guy, so he's going to make me look real smart with the team here. All right, what do we got next? What motivated me to turn my life around? The sheriff's department motivated me, is the best way to put it. They showed up at my house and said, Mr. Leaf, we're going to motivate you to change your life. But that really didn't do it either, because I went to prison and nothing changed for me. It was my roommate, ultimately. I got to give a ton of credit to my roommate. He was an Afghan-Iraqi war vet who had changed his life while he was in there, was not resolute with being that version of himself. And he took a liking to me and just said, one day he felt comfortable enough to kind of hold me accountable and say, hey, you have purpose. You can be meaningful to not only the men in here, but for when you get out, because you're going to get out at some point, Ryan. And he suggested we went down to the prison library and help prisoners learn how to read. And it was the first time I'd ever been of service to anybody. I used to think what I did on Saturdays and Sundays was me being of service, and what a silly concept that was. But I went down to this library, and there were, in a place where you're not supposed to be vulnerable or show vulnerability at all, prison, there's these 50-year-old men who looked at me and said, hey, Ryan, I can't read. Can you help me? And I'd never heard a man say that to me. I grew up in Montana, cowboy culture in NFL and college locker rooms my whole life, and I'd never heard another man walk up to me or anybody else and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me? And so my perspective shifted. And so I didn't know it at the time that was the moment that motivated me to change. But now, almost, 6-7 years removed from that moment, I can really point to that and understand why. And so it has been at the foundation of who I've been since I left prison, is to be of service to others and make it about other people and not about me. We don't do this show, to make ourselves look good. We do this show to try to help inspire and help people and bring people together talking about sports. That's why we do this show. So, all right, what do we got next?
All right, we got a few in here. I'm tracking these down. We're kind of all over the map at this point, but let's go ahead.
We answered the first part of this question. Let's do the second part. I know Charlie wants to.
And is Damian Lillard an underrated player? Well, yeah. I mean, he plays in Portland with nobody else. If he was on any other team, that had a secondary contributor like LeBron has always gotten somewhere, I mean, there would be conversation around as the best player in the NBA. Easily, I believe that.
You don't think CJ McCollum is a sufficient number 2?
Not the same. It's just not the same. It's not AD to your LeBron. It's just not.
But what teams have that? Ben Simmons isn't even a strong complement to Joel Embiid anymore.
I think he still is. I think he's still because of what he does with the ball, off the ball, handling assist wise. I think so. But I think he is. I think that to answer the question, I think he's an underrated player. I really do.
Let's go to the NFL. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
I was going to say, like, if he was in a different market, like we touched on this, I think a week or two ago, Stephen A. Smith was tweeting about how Damian Lillard needs to go to New York or Chicago, a big market for his name to really be out there. And it's not that. It's just the way the media portrays him. So he is underrated. Like, he should be getting so much more attention and exposure from what's actually happening.
He's an underdog too. He's an underdog. He comes from Weber State. You know, it's not like
exactly.
Big Sky Conference. So he's a great player though. Fun to watch.
So
fun. All right. What was that? What was that other question there?
Talk about
who's the most underrated player in the NFL draft. For me, it's Davis Mills. Just is. He's got first round talent. Everybody believes he's as good as Andrew Luck was when he got to college. He's only started 12 games. Had a great workout the other day during the rain. We'll see. How many more years before the Pac-12 gets another team in the
Oregon
BCS
next
playoff?
year?
Jonathan's bias, of course, flying face forward into the show once again. I would say when they most likely when they expand the playoff. Unfortunately, it's too competitive. It's just too competitive of a conference. Play 9 conference games plus, Oregon next year has to go to Ohio State and play a 9 conference game schedule, and they may be the best team that the conference has to offer next year. And they may be so good and have 2 losses when it's all said and done. And we still have not seen a 2-loss team get into the BCS playoff or into the college football playoff. So, Ryan, do you have a game that was the best of your career, statistically or personally? Many in college, of course, we point to. Probably the pros was a game at Denver. See that football back there? That is, I think that was 13 of 27 for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns at Mile High Stadium. All 3 of my touchdowns were all over 60-yard touchdown passes. One won me the AT&T long distance longest touchdown of the year award. I think it was like an 83-yard touchdown to Jeff Graham. I think I won a Cadillac Escalade for that. So that's pretty cool, Drove that around for a year. Cool shit, man. Just throw for 300 plus yards. Aaron, what type of earbud do you have in your ear right now? Okay. This is a Bose wireless one. I got it at the Las Vegas Bowl. I spoke at the Las Vegas Bowl and was given kind of a swag bag, and this was it. And I didn't even realize it was in there for forever until I pulled apart the bag at the end of football season last year, and there it was. Really does a good job of capturing the sound and doing the show. So this was fun.
Last one.
Who was my favorite wide receiver to throw to? College wide receiver Chris Jackson, by far my favorite wide receiver to throw to. In the pros, Keyshawn, he was really good. Joey Galloway, Rocket Ismail, those are some goodies. Chris Carter, Curtis Conway down in San Diego. So that was some fun for me in the NFL. So thanks to everybody for listening. This was a great show. Keep coming back. Tell your friends about us. Let's try to get as many people we can to be part of this. The RDL crew here, Jonathan, Sky, and Charlie, we say thank you. We'll be back Wednesday. I'll be hosting the Rich Eisen Show Wednesday from 9 to noon Pacific, and then I'll probably be popping on with the boys, but they'll probably be leading the way the rest of this week. So we'll see you Wednesday, noon to 1 Pacific. Thanks, guys, for listening and being part of the show. We love you all. See you next time.